All right, guys, we're back with another episode of the What's Next podcast. I'm your host, Levi Casada. As you know, this podcast is so much fun. I mean, maybe you don't know until you come in and do one, but maybe you should. So as I say that, I want to talk about my co-host today from North County. He lives in North County, but he's not really does anything in North County as much. He does it everywhere, actually. With New Venture Escrow, please welcome my main man, Brandon Wood.
Thank you.
Oh, a little shout out, Brandon.
I like it.
It's a big crowd.
That's a big crowd, man. Well, you know, Brandon, love having you on the show. You always bring the coolest guest, and by far, this is going to be an amazing podcast. We were supposed to start a while ago, but we sat down, we started chatting, and we were like, oh, crap, we're going to
Should have saved it
for the studio, but this is going to be fun anyways. So let's get going. Let's jump in. So please welcome to the What's Next podcast. You know him best as Agent Jon, Jon Tollhook. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you so much.
There you go. You get the same
It's good to be
applause.
here.
Yeah.
It sounds eerily familiar, that applause.
Yeah. I feel like that's on every soundboard everywhere for every show. No, that was a live crowd, guys. We're live here in the studio. But before I start here, I hope I pronounced your last name right. I had to ask Brandon. I had to Google it. You know how you can do how do you pronounce this? What's the origin of your last name?
Well, Google Translate doesn't actually tell you how to pronounce a Dutch last name the proper way, because in English we don't have the sound. So in Dutch, O and E together is pronounced oo.
Oh.
And we don't have that sound in English.
Ooh. Ooh, toe.
Yeah, so in Dutch it would be Tollhoek, but in English it's Tollhoek. And it's interesting too, because toll is the same in English as it is in Dutch. It's what you pay, right? And then a hook is actually a corner. And so the story is that my ancestors, before there were roads in Holland, there were canals. And to get from A to B, you were in a boat. And so my ancestors were essentially tax collectors, and they would take payments at the corner, which really sounds kind of trashy.
Everybody has history. Everybody has history. You're all good.
I'm proud of the Dutch history.
Yeah,
so.
and I'll make sure to put that spelling so everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about when I introduce you. Yeah.
Do it.
Everybody try to pronounce it. It'll be kind of fun.
Yeah.
But hey, so another thing is, you guys are not brothers?
Maybe by another mother.
Maybe by. It's like looking at a mirror right here, both you guys.
I actually hear that often.
Do you hear that often?
I always say, do not disrespect my guy.
Yeah.
By telling him we look like brothers.
I've not heard it, but
I'm also going to say, because you guys are looking at this camera and you guys are like, oh yeah, hey, they do look alike. You guys are almost 10 years apart.
wow.
John, you look great.
Who's older?
Brandon, you look great. I gave it away. My bad.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, John, you're not from here. And I love having guests on the show that are not from San Diego, just because it's such a great place to root yourself, right? Tell me about, you're Dutch. Tell me you didn't grow up in Holland or anything, right?
No. So,
okay.
Yeah, so my mom and dad met in South Florida. My dad was trying to immigrate and met her, and they fell in love. And I jokingly always tell people that it was, she was looking for a romantic European, and he was looking for a green card, and so they hit it off, and along I came. But yeah, so they met in South Florida, and I lived there till I was 12 in Central Florida, and then my dad, his company moved him to Central Virginia. So I spent from 12 until 28, I guess it was, in Central Virginia, and went to school in Richmond, as you know.
Yeah, VCU, shout out.
Oh, yeah.
Good basketball team.
Well, yeah, nobody knew about VCU until they beat Duke.
Right?
Which was like 10 years ago. But
yeah, but then they made a good run.
But they did.
Yeah.
They made a good run. They made a name for themselves. Like, okay, we know who VCU is now.
Yeah.
And then from there, I moved to D.C. and started my corporate career long before real estate. And then moved from there to Atlanta. I got recruited by another company in Atlanta. And I reached a certain point. I was 33, and I said, I really want to live on the West Coast. I want to leave the East Coast. I want to experience something different. There's so much to see, and so I just kind of plotted my course. And originally, I was going to get a master's degree in marital family therapy at USD.
Okay.
But then I didn't get into the program, which actually turned out to be much, much better. So I knew people, had friends here, talked to recruiters, moved out here to work for a company here, which was short-lived because it was in 2008 with the economy, right? Then landed in another big company, and I was there for 4 years and then got laid off again. So I started to assess. I'm like, well, what should I be doing? So that's sort of a longer version of the question. How did I wind up in San Diego?
No, that's great too, because, and I didn't know you're from Central Florida first, and you did the whole Florida thing, because I only know like the Virginia part. But it's very interesting. Like, and that's my follow-up question. Did you have anybody out here? Did you come visit? Did you just see it in books? Like, why West Coast? You know what I'm saying? Like, in your mind.
That's a great question. So my dad worked in a hotel industry is what was his industry. And so when I was a senior in high school, it's kind of funny, the company he worked for, every year they'd have an annual convention. And there was no single property that was big enough to house all of the people that worked for the company, except for, select cities like Chicago and San Diego. So they had an annual convention out here, and so I came out.
Yeah.
It's a little family vacation. And so I remember being 17 and thinking to myself, one day I will live here.
Yeah.
Because I was just taken by the weather and how nice the people are. And I just feel like everyone has their priorities right here. Like, they don't worry about the small stuff. Like, people, everyone's friendly. No matter where I go, people actively want to be in your life in some capacity. They want you to be happy and to really love it here. And I was drawn to that. Yeah,
it's cool because I think it plays on the weather. Everybody's happier when the sun's out. That vitamin D is flowing. You can get outside. When you get outside, and again in Virginia, you grew up probably around like trucks and outdoors and doing all that sort of stuff. Staying indoors sometimes. But again, when you start staying indoors too long, it's like, oh man, come on. Like, we had that rain last year. Just that downpour that kept happening.
Last year.
Was it last year? 2 years ago, 2023. It was so bad.
What do we only get, like 10 days of precipitation a year?
Yeah, that one rain though, you go to 11 days and everybody's freaking out.
And I don't miss it. And the funny thing is, Atlanta gets cold. It gets colder than you would think. And that was part of it too. I'd really kind of had it. Excuse me. I'd had it with the cold weather there. It just was done. So.
Yeah. Well, you made your way to Paradise. Well, I just want to go back because you're kind of touching base on all the jobs you said. I moved here, moved here. You majored in mass communications at VCU.
I did.
And again, this gentleman looks amazing. You gotta give us your secrets of how good you look.
Thank you.
You graduated 1995. Mass communications back in 1995 was mainly television. And the internet was just poking its head out, right?
Yeah.
So,
not even,
right?
Yeah. So I know where you're going with this, and I'll tell you. You and I were talking earlier before we started in the studio. At 16, I walked into a radio station and said, "I want to work here." It was a top 40 station, and I just by chance they needed people, and so I wound up doing weekends all through high school and all through college. And so when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for major, I knew it wasn't radio because I already did that.
Yeah.
So my other options were advertising, public relations, and basically broadcast. And I just didn't want to go that route. So not knowing anything about PR, I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. That sounds fun. Well, I graduated. And then I got a job in an agency, and I was there 6 months. And I was like, this sucks. I hate this. I hate my life. I don't do this at all. Because I just, PR was just something I chose. But what you're kind of driving toward, which is amazing to me, is that within 2 years of getting my degree in mass comm, PR as an industry was pretty much dead because of the evolution of the internet. And, and the other interesting thing too that I talk about with people is, in 1989, the FCC deregulated the communications industry in terms of who could own what. So before that, you could own one television station and one AM or FM. And then after that deregulation, suddenly it was anybody could buy anything, anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
And so then that's when mass media started buying up properties, and that's when the internet started growing at all. Everything changed all around that same period.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And you got to see that happen right in front of you. You're working in it.
Yeah.
And the reason I asked, because you did some good work for big names like Sony, Home Depot, Delta.
Yeah,
And
Delta
the only
Airlines.
reason I asked Delta, I'm sorry, Delta, but like doing PR for Delta right now is
Yeah,
probably not amazing
that's
to
tough
do,
to do.
you know?
The airline industry and doing PR for that's not fun. Fortunately for me, I was in the online media space.
Oh, yeah.
You know, which was that was. You want me to create a campaign to try to sell tickets to go to Florida for spring break? Really? Oh, okay. I'll sign me up. That was easy.
That's a no-brainer.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
It was probably the most fun corporate job that I've ever had because the people were amazing too. They're just kind, wonderful, amazing people.
Yeah. And it's such a big part of your life. So I didn't want you to skip over that too much about like, you know, how it brought you here or how the people that you met. And I want to talk about it too, because once we get into real estate, I want to talk about how that maybe helped your career now too. So you moved to San Diego.
Yeah, so I'll go a little bit further back. So I was in DC working for the company that ultimately would become Verizon, right, telecom. And then I had a brief stint with AOL. And then I got recruited by the Home Depot, which is funny because Home Depot wanted to launch HomeDepot.com. So that gives you some perspective. This is 1999. They don't have any online presence at all. And so they're like, well, you know something about project management on the web. Can you help us with this? And I'm like, sure, I'll help you. But I had no idea what the endeavor was. And it was to build the largest e-commerce platform ever, you know, in terms of trying to sell stuff online. Problem was it was 1989 and there was no map. There were no focus groups, usability studies, none of that. It was long before that. So, you know, they built out this incredible infrastructure with all these servers and can sell everything online and all that. And they flipped the switch on day one or day zero and crickets.
Yep.
Because they don't know yet that their core audience is females aged 35 to 50.
At Home Depot?
Who want
to buy
who
online.
want to learn about projects and how you can do it and what would eventually, ultimately what social media would become, right? This whole realm, this space of learning and things like that. Who's Home Depot's corporate customer? Who's their core customer day in and day out? Contractors.
Yeah,
They're not on the internet.
100%, yeah.
They're out there with hammers, like, you know, building stuff.
Yeah,
So-
they're already in the store getting it.
Right. So that was an interesting learning there. And then from the Home Depot, Delta, you know, they called and they were like, hey, we need some, because that was right before the Northwest merger and people were leaving and they were like, we need help. And so my responsibilities got bigger and bigger. And then I got laid off from that, which is a funny theme. By the time I was 33, I was laid off 4 times. Yeah. Which the only reason I mention that is because the universe was trying to tell me something.
100%.
Like, but little Johnny's not listening.
Listen.
I feel like,
Not paying attention.
There's a time that you actually start listening.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally, because it's all you can do. Right?
Yeah.
So I get recruited by Petco here in San Diego, and I was there 8 months, and that was 2008. And then they had a mass layoff. So then I landed at Sony Electronics in Rancho Bernardo. Best job in San Diego. That was a dream. That was one of the sexiest jobs ever because I was a web producer and I was doing film production for all of their showcases.
Yeah.
So all of their product lineup, their computers, home audio, home theater, all of that stuff. I was managing all that.
Yeah.
And through the course of that, I got to work with amazing talent. In Hollywood, you know, there was a point where I was working with Justin Timberlake and Peyton Manning and Taylor Swift because they were product advocates.
Yeah.
So here I am, this, you know, this kid from Virginia, like working with these people that would seem to anybody like they're out of touch, and then working with them, having conversation here. I need you to do this, or I need you to take care of that. You know, they're people at the end of the day. So it was humbling and exciting and fun, but an interesting turn in terms of my career. Yeah. But then, you know, Sony had a layoff, so I was part of that, and then I thought, okay, here I am again.
That's crazy. You never think Sony. No. You know, you think of audio, you think of all that stuff, and they're like the forefront of, or the pioneer of audio for every, like movie, music. Yeah, it was crazy.
Until Samsung came along.
Yeah.
And then the problem that Sony had was that they just couldn't get out from in front of themselves, you know. They found the value of the brand greater than the consumers did. Consumers wanted value. They wanted, you know what I mean? So
that's interesting. I love that you said value.
It really is. Yeah. It's really what it came down to because the value placed on a Bravia television, consumers don't see it the way that people that work at Sony saw it. And of course, that was 2012. But that whole building, in fact, it's interesting in Rancho Bernardo, that's an 11-story tower that was all electronics. And after my layoff and subsequent years, it's down to 1 floor.
Dang.
One floor is electronics, and then another floor is gaming, and another floor is pictures and all that sort of stuff. So it really it speaks to how smart the company was about realignment and just paying attention not
Yeah.
just
Well, yeah,
bleeding
changing,
on money.
yeah, changing with the times and doing what
100%.
you got to do to stay thriving.
Yeah.
Stay thriving, stay relevant.
Find the value.
Yeah.
And we'll get into the value because the reason I say value is because realtors are the value to, home buying, the biggest purchase of your life. So talk about value, talk about real estate, finally listening to the signs. What made you want to get your real estate license in San Diego?
Funny, I had a friend who, he knew I'd been laid off, and he said, hey, have you ever thought about real estate? And I said, fuck no.
And this is directly after Sony.
This is as the layoff is starting to crystallize, like I could see the writing on the wall.
This is
You got to be
12.
feeling too at the time, like, fuck, like I'm
Totally.
laid off.
Yeah, like, what the hell is going on?
here?
Well, I have to tell you guys, before I moved to San Diego, I was done with corporate America.
Yeah.
Like I was done. Like I was coming out here to interview. I interviewed with Petco. I interviewed with Sony, a few other companies, and I went home and I was like, honey, I don't want to work. And so I felt a little bit like a kind of a victim. Like I had to take a corporate job. It was what was expected. And so begrudgingly I took Petco and got laid off. And then I really didn't want to work I really didn't. And, but I needed the money. So I'm like, okay, Sony. And then that just, I was hired as a manager there, and then I got promoted to senior manager, and then I got a new boss who was amazing. This guy, Brian Beaver, he's a creative director who was just stellar. Like he put me on this amazing track, and he spoiled me, really. And then I got promoted to director and had this team of 22 doing all this creative stuff and this amazing, sexy work. And then they're like, well, we're out of money. Here's your pink slip, right?
Oh,
So
Again.
Yeah.
So my realtor friend at the time, we had met through, mutual friends, and he said, I thought about this. You'd be really good at it. That sort of stuff. And I was like, yeah, whatever. He's like, no, really. I can teach you negotiation skills. I can teach you contracts and all that. And I said,
you already had the people skills.
And was he in real estate at the time?
he was, and he still is. And I owe him a lot for that gift that he gave to me, because he really got me thinking about like what I could do. And thank you for the people skills. Like I try to be humble about that. Like I don't look at myself that I think the way that most people look at most realtors. I just, you and I were talking earlier, I always want to be authentic. And, I think sometimes our industry can maybe put up airs and some fronts and some, this is who I want people to see me as opposed to who I really am.
Yeah.
So I really had a challenge kind of coming to terms with that. But in time, I just, I focused on getting my license. And the trick to that was everyone's like, how did you pass the exam your first time? And I'm like, three things really. I told my spouse, I told my father, and I told my would-be broker that I was taking the exam. Because once you lay out that accountability, you better not fail.
Right? The three closest
Because
people.
they're asking. They're going to be asking about it.
Yeah. How'd you do?
Right. So I don't know. They don't tell you your score, but I know that I passed. And
It's a pass fail, right?
I didn't look back. Yeah, I was just like,
Yeah, yeah.
there. Couldn't get to my car fast enough.
You can't take it back. Yeah. I already
So
tried.
I did too pass my first time.
Nice.
And for me,
Nice.
my secret,
Look at you guys, you're like brothers. or
my
something.
secret, the cram courses saved my life.
Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. I did a Kaplan prep class. It was on Saturday, and my exam was on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So yeah, it totally worked. I was like, I'll never remember this, but
And the accountability, to your point. You tell those people that really matter because they'll be asking about it.
Yeah. That's a great point. And
also one more thing,
Yeah.
stay away from negativity. Negative people, that's the big thing they taught me in Kaplan. They're like, people are going to linger out front, stay away from everyone.
Yeah.
Because negative people like to attract negative attention. And once you get that, you get in your head, and then you question yourself, and on it goes. So yeah, stay away from negativity.
well, you took this journey, right? It takes a lot to step out of corporate America. A lot of people on this podcast, same thing. It's like when you finally step in, because nobody grows up going, in middle school or whatever, being like, what do you want to be, Johnny, when you grow up?
I want to be a realtor.
I wanna be a realtor.
No way.
I want to be an escrow guy.
I want to be an escrow. I want to be in, sales maybe, but like even then, like nobody knows sales.
Right,
So you have to have all these careers or jobs or something that kind of leads you to this path. And even then, it's very scary to be like, I'm not going to get a paycheck in a while.
Yeah.
So, new city, new job, no paycheck. Like what was going through your head? You passed, I'm ready to go. Your mentor was there and you just hit the ground running, right?
And what year are we talking?
So this is 2012.
Yeah.
And it's funny you use the phrase, what was going through your head, because that's the exact phrasing my father used.
Yeah.
I called him. I was like, hey, Dad, I think I want to be a realtor. And he goes, what?
It's so funny because when now that you're like in the industry and your business and I have kids and I'm just like, dude, you really don't need to go. And I hate to say this, but like college, like there's trade schools, there's different things like real estate. Nobody knows about like the wealthiest people in America own real estate.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
100%.
So when you're telling your dad, it's like, that's the normal response. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, he's like, what are you thinking? Like, why do you want to do that? And I said, well, I've got this friend, and I think he really helped me.
While he's rolling his eyes as you're speaking. So
completely. He's like, yeah, sure.
a friend telling you this.
Yeah, part of it was no children, right? I don't have any kids, so there's a lot of less risk,
right,
when you don't have little ones to look after. But I don't know. He had faith in me, and he just said, do what you need to do. And what's funny is as the years, and this was, like I said, 2012, but as the years would go by, he would tell me, I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of worry, a lot of stress for you. I didn't know if you'd make it. And I'm really proud and thrilled that you have and all the good stuff. But the other thing I attribute it to is having a really good core group of people around me. Number one, the man who would become my mentor, because I didn't know this at the time, but my broker at this small firm in Mission Hills, he was kind of winding down. And he had a private conversation with this realtor and said, listen, if you want to mentor this guy, fine, but he's all yours. I'm not going to have any involvement at all except for where I need to. Good luck kind of thing. So I really do give that guy, him a lot of credit for taking me on because it was an enormous amount of responsibility.
Yeah.
It had some impact, some material impact for me down the line in terms of understanding what the relationship I should have with a broker, like day in and day out, what that should be.
Yeah. Because
I wasn't exposed to that. But I do, like I said, I do give that agent a ton of credit. I can give him a shout out. It's Mike Gassaway.
Yeah, I love that.
Amazing guy. Really gave me a lot of confidence. It's funny because we have different approaches. He's from Jersey, and so he's got a very like in your face, like fuck you,
I love Jersey people.
Totally, me too.
Yeah.
But my mother was from New York, but my father being European, it's a delicate mix of diplomacy, So our approaches weren't the same, but the outcome, the approach, what you do, what you should do, how you should treat people, all that stuff was. Those are gifts that I'll always be grateful for.
Yeah.
You're
That's
also
so cool.
getting into it in not the best time in San Diego real estate. 2012, we're
better than now. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
we just bottomed out right through the crash.
Yeah.
A lot of REOs on the market, a lot of stuff going on. Hard to make it as a new agent in 2012.
True. The funny thing with me was that we talked previously about how I was in radio. I was doing some traffic reporting and stuff from time to time as fill-in. And a fun fact, one of the busiest traffic days, time slots really is Thursday afternoon because people don't want to go home. They don't want to stay at work. So what do? They do other things, right?
Yeah.
So I created this strategy where I was like, every Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Thursday afternoon 4 to 7, Saturday 1 to 4, Sunday 1 to 4, I'll do open houses. And that was a core part of my strategy when I started and the traffic that I would get every Thursday because people would show up and I'd be like, oh, you don't want to be at work? No, I'm going to be at work. And so I was able to build some client base there, and that sort of thing. So
that's very interesting. It's very smart too because Monday, people are working, grinding, coming off the weekend.
Yeah.
Tuesday, they're really like follow up, like doing whatever they need to really finish. Wednesday, it's kind of like, okay, I got to get this done because I know Thursday, Friday, like Thursday afternoon.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, that's why they call it Thirsty Thursdays, right? Like people, that's the best happy hour those days because
that
people
explains a lot now.
Yeah,
they're
right.
coming to my open house after they've been drinking. Okay,
yeah, right. It's the best time for bars, and then Friday, it's like some people grind and some people like
leave town.
Leave town and get the little 3-day vacation in, or
So the Thursday afternoon open house.
But so you figured that out by doing traffic broadcasting.
Well, yeah, like
there's a lot of traffic on the road Thursday afternoon. Let's do open houses.
Yeah, like when I lived in Washington D.C., I worked for a radio station, big radio station there called Mix 107.3, and it was the highlight of my radio career. Is the kind of station that's like Kiss FM, in LA or Anyway, so at one point somebody was sick, and they were like, "Oh, can you do traffic?" And I'm like, no. They're like, read this. I'm like, okay. So I went in there and I just became familiar with that and all that sort of stuff. And so what I realized was the traffic patterns. Like I was just doing it part-time. So it varied the days, but I was always like, God, Thursdays suck, man. You don't want to be on the road, and nobody does. So that's the point.
But then they're stuck listening to you.
Well,
That's the best part about broadcasting at that
Yeah.
point. It's like, all right, let's put our best DJs on Thursday. You know,
Yeah.
that's why there's always like that 5 p.m. traffic. You got the best DJs, you got the best music going, you got the like, don't kill anybody on the road sort of music. Like, let's pump yourself up.
yeah. This traffic report brought to you by Agent Jon.
Hey.
Yeah. Maybe we get you back on there.
Maybe.
I want to get some clips from you back in the day.
Oh, I've got good
Oh my
ones.
God,
I'll send them to you. They're
Yeah.
fun, but it sounds like I'm on the most potent energy drink you've ever seen, because my program director back then was like, no, pump it up, hype it up. You know,
Like, I'm already so hyped.
that was ridiculous. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. But it did, you know, I was paying attention to the trends, you know, which I
Right.
think that kind of speaks a little bit early on to my career in real estate, because there's so many trends in real estate, and I wish we all had, you know, what am I trying to think? Not a magic wand.
A crystal ball. A magic 8 ball?
Thank you. I wish we
Yeah,
had a
crystal ball.
Crystal
yeah.
ball.
Yeah, I'll start that again.
No, yeah,
Not the
you're good.
magic 8 ball. That one.
No, that's the one you're asking questions. You're asking questions. You're like, try again. No.
Yeah.
That's not the answer I wanted.
Everyone wants to know. They're like, what's going to happen? I'm like, I don't know. But, you know, paying attention to the trends and looking back on that and thinking, okay, I remember how brutal it was on Thursday afternoons. Maybe I can make something out of this. Like, so, and for me, you know, early on, I also learned a lesson about open houses that had the wrong attitude, you know, because I do these do these open houses, and I'd come back from my open houses and I'd talk to my broker, and he'd be like, why are you in a bad mood? And I'd say, oh, nobody came. And I'd have these learning moments where George Gilman, in fact, you knew George.
Love George.
He's living life in Hawaii. But he taught me
it's
so
paradise.
much incredible like phrases, so many phrases that he taught me that I carried with me. And one of them was, before you think about the kind of client you want to work with, think about the kind of client you don't want to work with.
Yeah.
You know, which was so meaningful. But I'd come back from these open houses and I'd say, I don't understand why nobody showed up. And I remember one day he said, you know what, John? You need to change your attitude and look at it, when you do an open house, look at it as like offsite office time. Bring work with you, right? And when it's quiet, do something productive.
Yeah.
And that's going to change your attitude. And it really worked well. I owe him so much. Like George he was just an amazing guy. So much to offer.
That's
He
so
was great. He was a great guy. So yeah, I've known George for a while as well. And Levi just got back from Hawaii, and it was a sad day for me when George and Dale, they left for Hawaii. I was like, oh, let's see you. But
Oh, yeah, Hawaii
living in
was
paradise.
amazing.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's funny you say what you just said, because I had this conversation with my daughter late last night about who you're kind of like talking about. You know what I'm saying? Who you don't want to be.
Right.
And she's talking about her theater, and she's talking about this one kid, and I wait for her to say the whole spiel, and she doesn't like how he's like doing his thing, and he thinks he's the best, and da-da-da-da-da, and like you got to kind of be humble. And I wait till she finished, and I was like, okay, remember how you're speaking about this person right now. You're speaking about them because you don't like the way they're acting. You got to look at that and learn from this moment. You don't want to fall into that role of who you don't want to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I was just having that conversation with a 14-year-old girl right now. It's like you don't want to fall in that role. You're talking bad about this person. You're talking how you don't like how they're treating people. Just look at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it kind of rolls into life, and
Totally.
and especially we talk about value, and we talk about, being a realtor. I want to talk about your name,
Okay.
Agent Jon,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Why?
Well, so, nobody can say my last name. Nobody can say it. Nobody can spell it. But for those of you that want to know, it's Tolhoek.
Yeah.
And TOL is toll, like what you pay, and hook, HOEK is Dutch for corner. Nobody can say it or spell it. And so I remember my second year in real estate, all my signs had my first name and last name, and agents would call me and they'd butcher my name so much I wasn't even sure they were asking for me, right? The only thing that validated.
Wait, was there an O and an E in there?
How do you
Is
say
that
this?
John with an H or just an O?
Or they'd just say, hey, I'm just John. John. I'm like, yeah, it's me. So I was showing property for a colleague. Excuse me. I was showing property for a colleague. And it was, I don't even know if she's still in the business, but there was an agent that had, her sign said Agent Jen. Jenn. Thank you, Agent Jen, wherever you are. Because I thought, the finest form of flattery is imitation. So I ran with it. I'm like, oh, Agent Jon. So, and this is what's crazy is when you think about in 2015, going to the web, going to like, any internet service provider and trying to find a web address and it not already being taken, it's a needle in a haystack. So I type in Agent Jon, AGENTJON.com, and it's available.
That's crazy.
I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me.
Wow.
Because
Right?
it's instant credibility, right?
Yeah.
It's instant like, oh, this guy's been around a long time.
Yeah.
He's been around as long as Delta or whatever. So,
It's not like agentjon26.com.
right.
It's like,
Or-
you got Agent Jon, which that
Yeah. Hyphen underscore exclamation point, all that. So
Now I
got-
want to see how many Agent Johns there are. Like there's like one, yeah, like you said, 1, 2, 28.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny thing is the Agent Johns that are out there are mostly in sports, which is
Oh,
beneficial
yeah.
to me, right?
Yeah, right.
But anyway, so I registered it and I got the site and all that stuff going. And really the reason behind it is I don't want people to feel self-conscious or funny, like not knowing how to say my name, whether they're, cooperating agents or whether they're clients or whomever it is. And then just from a branding perspective, like harkening back to my time at Delta and at the Home Depot and other companies I've worked for, simplicity is key, right? And Agent Jon, as long as it's spelled Jon,
Right.
it's easy to remember.
Yeah.
It's really simple. And funny thing is Brandon knows this. I have it on my license plate. Mm-hmm. So I've got to be a good boy on the road.
100%.
Yeah. One day, so I'm part of this networking group, and one day I came into my networking group meeting, and everyone's talking about how they're doing. And so this really wonderful woman, Amanda, a dear friend of mine, she sells life insurance, and so everyone's going around like, how you doing? How you doing? She's like, well, I was having a really good day yesterday until Agent Jon cut me off. So I just said, well, you probably should be driving faster.
Yeah.
Well, go drive so slow.
All right. Look out for Agent Jon.
But I got to remember that. Yeah.
Whenever I see a big black truck on the road, I'm always looking at the license plate. Is that Jon? No, it's not Jon.
Oh,
Not me.
that's cool to set yourself apart like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's fun,
Yeah. And you set yourself apart in this industry, which is amazing. I'm having such a great time getting to know you better. Like I love this. That's why I love this podcast. I love this platform. Tell me a little bit more about your boot camp. You started a buyer boot camp.
Yeah, that's great. So Matt Glenn, lender with One Trust Home Loans, he's not there anymore. But what's interesting, just a quick sidebar about Brandon. So Brandon and I met. I don't know if you were getting into this later, but I was.
Yeah. No, tell me about Brandon.
Yeah, so I was in this office in Mission Hills, this small boutique office called Pacific Pinnacle, and it was just 8 agents, very small, easy. Really easy environment, easy to talk to people, and they were a lot of the agents were really seasoned. Most of them were 20 plus years, and so it was a great environment for me as a new agent.
Yeah.
And so they said, listen, someone's going to come in today from this escrow company. You should probably talk to them. And I didn't know. I mean, I really didn't know anything about any of it. I didn't know anything about escrow or title, what escrow agents did, what title agents did, any of that stuff. And so in walks this guy, and it's Brandon, and I'm like, hello. And so we just click right away. And so what was amazing, I didn't know this, no one explained this to me, that in real estate, what really sets you up for success is having a dream team.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just knew that I liked him and he seemed fun. We're going to go get lunch, right? Why not? So then he introduced me to the escrow agent. Her name is Reina Nunez, who I absolutely adore.
Yeah.
And she's been with me since day one, or I should say I've been with her since day one. So the goal was to build a dream team. And so Brandon has always been part of that. Reina's been part of that. And so that's really sort of how everything culminated for me. And I forgot your question.
No, you're great. We'll go back to it. I'll ask the question again, but I love where you're going with this. And it's not like we're trying to give a shout out to Brandon, but we are, because you are great.
he's
Like,
awesome.
and we love Reina too. But you're touching a great point. Partnership, being the right people. Like go out and explore, because there are some great people out there, and you want to be with who you really enjoy, right?
Right.
Because
who you trust. Yep.
Who you trust.
Yep. Know, like, trust. Yep.
Yep. Know, like, trust. I like that.
Always. My father-in-law taught me that. He's like, people will work with you if they know you, if they like you, they trust you.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it's all about. Authenticity, right?
Yeah. It's all about being genuine.
Totally.
The
100%,
authenticity.
100%.
So the question was, and I think you were going to hit on it, is because you built this great team, this great partnership with escrow title, escrow officer, you bring a lot of value to your buyer boot camp.
Oh, right. Thank you.
So like you having this buyer boot camp, you started it. Like what is it all about? That's why I kind of want to.
Yeah, it's that. Now I know why I lost my train of thought, is because
Yeah.
it's actually 2 questions in one that you're asking. One of them you didn't even, there's no way you could have known that you were asking that. So getting back to Brandon and Reina and also Crystal Bonetto from First American, the reason I mentioned these 3 is because early on, like, it takes a while to build to build momentum
sure.
and all that stuff. And I have such gratitude. You can't even imagine the amount of gratitude I have to you and to Raina and Chris and everybody that's on my dream team, my TC, all that, because they believed in me. And early on, I wasn't as productive as they knew I would be, or they hoped I would be. Right?
Yeah.
And so there was this real period, especially for Crystal, in title, where, there was a good 3.5, 4 year period where it wasn't happening for me yet. It would, but it wasn't yet. And still she stuck by me. So I have tremendous gratitude to you and to everyone on my dream team. But they are an integral part of making me a success, right? So getting back to your question about the buyer boot camp, I bought my first place in 2010. And I had a terrible experience because it was a bit of a specialty property and the agent didn't know a lot and didn't reveal to me, for fear maybe that I wouldn't work with that person, didn't know that they didn't know a lot, right? And so I learned a lot of things the hard way, and it was painful. A lot of it was very, very painful. And I just remember thinking to myself in 2010, before I was even a realtor, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to do this.
Yeah.
So then I get licensed in 2012, and in walks Matt Glenn, same office, like that Brandon walked into. He was looking, Matt was looking for agents to partner with and that sort of thing. And so when I met him, I said, hey, I want to talk to you about an idea I have. And he said, all right, I'm all ears. And I said, I want to produce a first-time buyer boot camp. I want it to be rapid fire boot camp style. I want to teach the 17 steps of the purchase process. Everything, soup to nuts. What you do with your lender, what you do with your real estate agent, what you should expect from your escrow company, title, everything, inspections, all of that stuff. So he and I put together a curriculum. And it's quick. It's rapid fire. It's an hour. I still do it to this day. The challenge is it doesn't appeal to everybody because some people are conventional buyers and some are FHA and some are VA, but the steps are still the same. And so the idea behind it is to help first-time buyers understand what the process should be before they even get into it, right?
Yeah.
So my ideal candidate for someone, and it's free, I don't charge for it. I hope they're going to work with me and select this agent, right?
I mean, that's what you put in the work, right?
That's it. But the ultimate goal is to catch them right before they're even thinking about buying, so that they know they have a resource. So, and then when COVID happened, it started to turn into like one-on-one Zoom stuff. And then since then, I'll meet them in one-on-one at my office and we'll kind of go through their specific situation together. But the genesis of it was to create an environment where they feel empowered. They don't feel like there's any obligation, because the only thing I'd ask for is feedback. Like I'd say, you don't owe me any money, you don't owe me anything, but I would like for you to be candid in your feedback about how I can make this better. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. And so enormous number of clients came out of that, as you can imagine. And I still do them because what drives me, what gets me up in the morning is helping people understand, like there's a better way, and it's through like regular communication. So I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later.
Well, and that's the same thing, is that the stigma of being a real estate agent, you're breaking that norm by educating people, right?
Right.
Because this whole NARS element, like, why do we need agents? Internet's here, like, let's e-commerce, let's shop online. No, you need us because they're not going to know what you're feeling when you walk in a home. Yeah. They're not going to know the whole intricate. They don't know that you need a good escrow team. They don't know you need a good title team. That you put this team together, not them. Yeah.
Well, and what amazes me is how many buyers are out there that never interview agents. They never ask questions. The number one question I always tell my they're not students really, but the people that attend my buyer boot camp is, don't be afraid to ask your agent questions. Don't be afraid to ask. Number one question you should ask your lender. Do you guys know?
What's that?
What is it?
What are you not going to do for me?
Yeah.
Because they'll tell you everything they're going to do, but they won't tell you what they're not going to do. And that, of course, came out of an experience I had with an early client that we were able to sort out. But by providing this sort of education, it really kind of levels the playing field.
Yeah.
Because I think unfortunately, there's a lot of people in the industry that, there's what their knowledge, their experience isn't all the same. And if I can impart knowledge about what a buyer should expect during their whole transaction experience, it's just, going to spontaneously help them understand, okay, how much I know and how much I can guide them, right? As opposed to being someone that says, oh yeah, we got this. And then it's what happened to me in 2010, which is ultimately that agent didn't know much about it and I had a really painful experience.
Well, how'd you find that agent?
It was a social thing. I was at a party and, hey, I'm a realtor. And
it's kind of funny how that happens.
Yeah.
Like it's just like buying, I go into stuff. I'm so guilty of this. And that's why I like shopping online now. And I hate to say that, but I'll go into a shop, and if it's someone that's, and again, being very genuine, retail and stuff like that, they're coming up to me and they're like, "Oh, this will look good on you," and da da da, and they come out and they go, "Those look great," da da da. I'm like, okay, you know what I'm saying? And then I go home and I'm like, damn it, those don't look great on me, but I won't bring them back.
Right.
But you sold me. Same with like you walk in an open house and you don't have an agent representing you,
Yep.
and you have a good conversation with the guy or the girl that's holding the open house, the person that's open the house, and you know, they might want to work with you. Like, hey, does anybody represent you? You know,
Yep.
and again, you kind of get caught because you don't ask the questions. I think that's that's a great information is ask the questions.
Why not? Why not? I mean, because here we are, you mentioned the NAR settlement, and what I've found, what frustrates me so much is that agents are afraid to have dialogue with their clients. They don't want to say, hey, this is, would you work someone for free? No, there's a compensation component and all that. Agents don't have that. And so in the absence of having a conversation with your client about the compensation you're hoping for or expecting, there's no value in you being there. Like if everything is just free, then there's no value, right?
Yeah.
So that dialogue has to happen. So that's, just a takeaway that I've found since the NAR settlement. But
yeah. What's some of the complexities about purchasing a home for first-time buyers that you kind of like put at ease? You know, you go into it, you're very anxious. San Diego is a tough market. I'm coming from Arizona. Mm-hmm. And even the values there have gone up so high. And you've lived here your whole life, so you've seen the market. Mm-hmm. In your house that you purchase, and even back then when you first buy it, you're like, that's a lot of money. How can I afford this?
Yeah.
How do you put the first time home buyer's mind at ease, and what are some of those conversations? Because we finally purchased when we were here. We purchased in Arizona, we purchased here. There's a lot of stuff I didn't know about going into my first purchase.
Sure.
Like, don't go and buy a new car. Just easy stuff like that.
Which is why you need a good realtor, right?
Which is why
to
guide you through there. Like you get excited, like I'm going to make a purchase, and then you get purchase happy and you start purchasing other things. You already start buying stuff for the house that you don't even have yet. So kind of walk me through like some of the conversations you have with the first time home buyer.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, the first thing I start with is the process.
Yeah.
The 17 steps. Here's what you should expect. I go through the whole, so I actually this little map that I created because I'm personally a visual learner. So
I think a lot of us are.
Yeah, I go through the whole map of over it, so I can do it backward, like I know where all the steps are. That puts them at ease to begin with. But then the questions come up like, well, how do I know I'm not going to lose my earnest money deposit, right? So we talk about that. We talk about the form that you fill out when you're going to release your contingencies and what those fancy words mean. What I do is I take these technical words and I relate them in a way that's just meaningful and simple, right?
That's the biggest thing.
It's simplicity.
Yeah.
That's one. The second thing is taking the time to stop and listen. And one of the challenges of our industry is that there's a lot of talking going on.
Yeah.
There's the old adage about you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Right? Listen more than you talk.
Yeah.
My clients get a ton of value. Like every time I work with someone, they say, thank you so much for listening to me. It's so important in our culture to be heard. Half of it, like there's something in the PR industry, taking it back to VCU, and thank you, Dr. Dreamer, my PR person, which is kind of a funny name that she had, Dr. Dreamer. But, there's this thing called the information vacuum. And if we don't fill it with information and knowledge and certainty and fact, then our heads are going to fill it with whatever our heads fill it with, right?
Yeah.
So what I do is I make a practice of reaching out to my clients daily if I need to, just say, hey, checking on you. How are you doing today? Just want to let you know everything's on track. Because what it does is it replaces the misinformation and the information vacuum with what's really going on. And it alleviates that anxiety. And then the third thing that's really probably what I'm most passionate about that I learned at my experience in Delta is the purchase contract. It's astonishing to me the number of agents that are out there. They don't know the contract. They don't go through it. They just send it through DocuSign, and their clients just sign it, have no idea what they're signing.
Yeah.
When I was at Delta, I used to write terms and conditions. That was my job. And if I got them wrong, I'd get fired. So I'm what we call a T&C monkey. Like I'm really focused on what the words say, what they mean. And then I take the time to go through the entire contract with my buyer or my seller and explain what every section means. Mm-hmm. In the absence of that, you're signing something you don't even know what your rights are.
Right.
And in California, consumers have a lot of rights. They should know what those are.
Yeah.
So I think those three things combined are really what, at night, really help my clients to not worry about what the process is or where they are in it or what's next.
Yeah, that really sets yourself apart.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
Clearly, I get passionate about it.
Yeah,
so.
that's great. You can tell.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like as the consumer or the buyer or the seller, what have you, you put a lot of trust and hope into your realtor, right? Because like you said, the purchase contract, there's a lot of verbiage that they don't know what they're saying. What is all this? And they're not taking the time to read through or fine-tooth comb through it. So they rely on their realtors, right, to it's describe everything to them, make sure they feel comfortable with what they're signing.
Right.
Because it's a big deal.
It is a big deal, and it takes us back to the NAR settlement, right?
Yeah.
So, now with the NAR settlement, buyers are expected to pay buyer compensation. One of the biggest key differentiators about agents is the ones that know the contract. That is that's the money that you're spending for the compensation for your agent is
the value.
Your agent's value, of the explanation and the knowledge, and at the end of the day, the peace of mind.
Yeah, keeping you at ease, right? And
100%.
making you feel good about we're closing, and I feel good about everything that happens.
Right, no doubt.
Yeah, I think you do. Yeah, you're doing a great job of doing that.
Thank you.
And you have to put the. It's so weird. I don't know the clientele you work with. Like, so tell us a little bit. Like, what age range do you work with?
It's all over the map. People ask me like, "Oh, do you have an area you're working?" Well, primarily it's Normal Heights.
Okay.
But I have clients that can't afford Normal Heights, so they go a little east. Or I have clients that can afford more, so I go a little. So right now, today, at this very moment, I've got a listing in La Jolla. I've got a listing down in South Bay, like right at the edge of the border. I've got one in Mount Helix, and I'm representing buyers in Normal Heights. So it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Ages, demographics, all of that stuff. So it's fun for me. It's fun for me because everyone's different, and I hearken back to my days in project management because I do treat every transaction like a project.
Right.
It's got a start time, end time, all that sort of stuff. And everyone's needs are different and all that sort of thing. But unfortunately, I wish I could say they're this demographic, they're this age.
No, and the reason I'm asking this question, I love that you work with. I mean, you're everywhere on the map in San Diego. I love that. Yeah. And the reason I ask this is because you kind of touch base is the perception. Everything is all social media right now. Mm-hmm. You've worked in media for so long, and now social media. You come into this business at 2012. Instagram, Facebook was happening in 2010. You hit the ground running, boots on the ground. Your social media is great. You put a lot of stuff out there, which is amazing. But a lot of people are getting that feeling and like what real estate is from social media, right?
Totally, absolutely.
So you got to put that mind at ease. And so that's why I was asking you of like, when you work with a younger demographic, and they see what real estate's like online, like putting them at ease about like, no, this is the way it is.
Right.
Because I told you, like, I think reality TV kind of messed up
100%
this industry.
Well, because it's got to be interesting and appealing.
It has to be interesting, and you have to be interesting, and like,
there's got to be some drama. There's got to be like stuff going on.
But why?
I hate to burst bubbles. I love to say to my clients that I'm here to crush dreams and break hearts. As someone that's a broadcast veteran, I can tell you it's all fake. Because
of course
it makes for good TV.
Yes.
Right. But the reality is, so the stories kind of paralleling what you're talking about, the stories that I tell on social media are about my day-to-day experiences with clients that are real.
Yeah.
Like today we're looking at a repair request. How's my client going to respond to this repair request? He can, like in the state of California, fun fact, you can give them everything they want. You can give them some of what they want. You can give them none of what they want, or you don't even have to respond. So, what's the seller going to want to do? How are they going to respond? Like with all these options and that sort of thing. So what I try to do is take the followers that I have through this journey so that they can understand like what I go through on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And then ultimately when it's their turn, they'll kind of hopefully know what to expect. So it is entertaining on some levels, like the house that's down in South Bay I was talking about a minute ago is a flip. So the guy that's selling it inherited from a relative who is a lifelong smoker, and the walls are brown. No kidding.
No joke.
No joke. The carpet had to be called up. I'm going to post this on my social media. You'll see it before and after because everyone loves a good before and after.
Of course.
But carpets had to be scored and rolled up. Entire house inside and out had to be repainted. And now it's like an incredible model house. It's incredible. Like I feel so fortunate to my client for like he's like, here, do whatever you need to do. And I'm like, what? Really? So it's been a really, really fun project that's unusual that doesn't land in my lap very often, but it's a fun story to tell.
Yeah.
And it's really the antithesis of what you're seeing on reality TV because they gotta, at the end, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the end of every segment, There's always a hook. There's always a question. There's always, how's it going to end up? What's going to happen? What are they going to do? All that.
Yeah, because it leaves you on a cliff. It wants you to watch the next episode.
And the secret to that is that it's lead into the spots. So it's all about, obviously with broadcast, it's about selling ads.
Yeah.
But they want to hook people to the very last minute, because then the very first commercial they see is the most expensive.
Yeah.
From the broadcaster's perspective.
Oh, interesting.
There's always reason for all of it, and it's just, yeah, I could tell you all about it.
Yeah. So it is sort of kind of getting at like this, sifting through that as a younger generation, because that's all they know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They get their news from their phone. They get, from social media, not even from their phone, not from CNN, not from Fox. A lot of them just get them from the influencer.
Sure.
Yeah, the influencer is like, oh, this is what is in the news, and you're like, oh yeah, that is in the news. Oh, real estate is falling off. Like, why don't you do like your
coming up to another recession?
Yeah, but I love that you asked that question, especially in the first time homebuyer boot camp. Like, how can I make this better?
Right.
You're evolving, and that's what's going to change this industry and make it stronger. Right. The community we built.
Right.
Yeah. I think we do a good part here. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Most definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to, before we leave this sort of segment topic, do you know that I have to ask you guys this question because it's always fun for me. I ask this at like cocktail parties. Do you know what the difference is between fake news and real news?
What's the difference?
So fake news isn't really an expression people really use so much anymore. It's about 6-7 years old, right?
Yeah.
The difference between fake news and real news is that real news has already happened. It's an attack. It's a crash. It's whatever. Fake news is editorial about what they think might happen, right? Mm-hmm. And so fake news actually evolved when tickers on CNN started. Oh, do you guys remember that when there was the
bottom, because that's all you read.
I'm so bored looking at this guy telling the news. Give me more. I need to read. So we have the stock ticker and we have the breaking news thing and all that sort of stuff. That's where all that came from.
Or it's TVs at a bar or at an airport, and then you don't have sound. You just have the
something
ticker,
to read.
So you're just looking at the
100%. Yeah. So that's the difference between fake news and real news. Huh. Well, as I learned it in communication school.
Yeah.
So before fake news was even a thing, it was just called editorial.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, thought I'd throw that in there.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the whole real estate thing. I love this. What do you love about this industry? Because again, it's hard to get into. Mm-hmm. People saw in 2020 pandemic, everybody was like, this is easy.
Right.
You've seen it since 2012 when it wasn't easy. Mm-hmm. Then you saw super easy with 2020, the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then you've worked your way out of the pandemic. You pushed all those people aside who were just like agents just trying to sell their house to their uncles, aunts, and family members. Thought it was easy. What do you love is still being in this industry? Like what gets you up in the morning? Like tell me what your day-to-day is on this industry and just getting up.
Interesting. Day-to-day. Let me start there because that's probably the most challenging. I'm not an early riser, but
I love that you're honest about that.
I stay up late.
Yeah.
I try not to read email first thing in the morning because it derails me. Like I have certain things I want to get done.
Yeah.
One thing I learned early on is time blocking, how important time blocking is. So set aside time. And I have to give another shout out to another broker of mine. She used to say, if you erase, you must replace. So if you imagine looking at your day book, if those people still have those, or whatever it is, a list.
Digital, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Just, I'm going to spend this 2 hours doing this, and I'm going to spend this 2 hours doing that, and sort of stuff, sticking to that. So trying to avoid distractions like looking at email, looking at my phone, looking at TV, to try to get through as much of that as I can until I'm distracted and get thrown off.
Yeah.
So that's part of it, is trying to stay on task. But things come up, right? So if I erase that and I can't do it from 1 to 2, then I find another place to put it. So I make sure it gets done.
Yeah.
And so, that's a lot of it too. And a lot of follow-up. I'm making a lot of follow-up calls and checking on clients and things like that. So that's kind of the bulk of my day. But what's the second part of your question?
What was I asking?
You asked
me
what I love about the industry.
What keeps you going? What makes you?
Yeah, what keeps you ticking? What we got your day to day. What do you love?
Yeah.
You get up, and again, like your social media is so great. Like, do you control your social media as well?
100%. In fact, I would tell anyone that's interested, anyone that's going to listen, always control your own social media, always control your own voice. Funny enough, I work for the Home Depot, and I don't know, like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, they farmed their social media out to an agency, and the agency thought it would be funny to post something that was horribly culturally offensive. So the truth is, you never want to lose that voice. You never want, always tell your own story, always tell your own voice.
Yeah.
Like always, you know what I mean? Be authentic.
Yeah.
I know I mentioned that earlier. Authenticity is so important because if you give your voice and your tone of voice and your experience and your focus area to somebody else, they're going to mess it up.
Right.
Hands down.
Also with social media, it's tricky, right? So if you give that to somebody else and now they're posting or commenting or whatever, when you meet that person that just knows you on social media and you're not that person,
right?
Guess what? All those posts and that interaction doesn't matter anymore.
Completely.
Because you're a different person. You're not the person that they think they're meeting.
Exactly. And the other thing is, like, when you think about the things that matter to you and the things that matter to your clients, that relevance, when you give that to somebody else, suddenly it's not as relevant to them because it's not who you are. So they're following you. Like I do a Foodie Friday because I love to go out to eat, like probably more than I should. And it's just fun. And for me, it's become competitive. Like, can I find the latest, newest restaurant?
Yeah.
And so I've got a following out of that I never anticipated. It was just someone told me early on, post about stuff that you like. And I love to eat. So, I'm posting stuff about Foodie Friday. And I try to do a delicate balance of like, here's what most people want to hear about. They want to know market trends. They want to know, tips on low interest rates and things like that. And then 20% of the time it's, hey, pick me. I'm a realtor, pick me,
Yeah.
Because it's inherent. Like they know if they're following you already. And the other thing is whenever I do any videos or postings, I never say, hey, I'm Agent Jon. Everyone knows I'm me, right? They're following me already. So I try to keep those things in mind. But getting back to your original question about what really excites me about the industry, my passion is helping first-time buyers. So helping them not get, snowballed. Like I want them to have a really great experience and to know what to expect and how to go approach it and all that. But the other thing is I treat it, like I said, project by project basis. So always new and different personalities. To me, that's exciting and interesting, right?
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, the ultimate goal really is helping people achieve their goals. And I think it's an arguable point that most people want to buy real estate because ultimately they're trying to gain equity and build personal wealth and all that stuff that's at the end of the day. One of the things that I'm really passionate about with my clients is what I call step up. So I have several examples, but the most notable one is this client of mine, Jen, who I met her when she was living in a 1-bedroom, 1-bath with her young son in Lakeside, and she owned it. And she came to me and said, hey, I want to buy a bigger place. And so she worked with me and we got her into a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and then a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and then a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. These were all condos. And then ultimately I got her into a house, like, this whole process of negotiating all that stuff. She got into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that had enough acreage that she could put in an ADU. And so she is the best shining example of step up and building wealth over a period to help her attain her goals. So that's what drives me, right, is that I play a part in that. And it's exciting because I know her son. I mean, he's 12 now, and I knew him when he was 3.
Isn't that the crazy?
Incredible.
Crazy that the relationship you build, like no other industry, I feel, does this, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't build.
Maintain those.
Your mic. There you go. Yeah, I got you. Just plug that back in.
I mean, we are relationship driven for sure. But like Levi was saying, name another industry where you can keep those contacts and those relationships for life, right?
Totally.
Forever.
Yeah.
As long as you're good at what you do and you keep providing that value.
Yeah. Going back to George Gilman, he said to me earlier, he said, there's 2 types of agents, Jon. There's relational agents and there's transactional agents.
Yep.
Do you want to be a transactional agent that's going to churn and burn? Or do you want to, so my goal is always helping my client achieve what they want to achieve in the best experience possible. Because if I succeed there, wealth was never a goal for me. It's still not a goal for me. My goal is helping people achieve their dreams and their goals and whatever that is. Yeah. I'm in contact with 90% of my clients. The ones that move away are the ones I hardly talk to anymore.
Yeah.
But to me, that's really the barometer of success, is being in touch with these people and seeing them grow and knowing their kids and helping them through that.
Mm-hmm. Well, transactional can be replaced.
It can. And it is.
That's the biggest thing.
It 100% is.
Yeah.
Always.
And I've had the pleasure over the last 2 years to work closely with Brandon. He comes in here, and I think you do it great. Like you do a great job at bringing in the people that you want to work with. Yeah. And I see it day to day of just your interaction. You're not that pushy salesman. And same with John. I'm just, I'm really getting to know you today. But that's the thing. Like, be genuine, be authentic. And I think you do a great job at it, both you guys, because they're going to work with you because they like you. It's the relationship you build. And again, those 3-4 years that you might have struggled, you're building a base.
Yeah.
You're putting in their head, hey, I'm not a pushy agent. If you want to work with me, I want to work with you too. I want you to like me because we're going to go through a fucking journey.
Right.
That's going to change your life.
Totally.
Real estate changes lives. It really does, especially in San Diego, man. I mean, this is the best place to buy, you're coming from the East Coast.
Yeah.
Getting out of the cold, coming here and and it's crazy. And like I said, Brandon, you've seen it. You've lived it your whole life.
Yep. I know nothing else.
You know nothing else. So but you bought your first house, and like the equity you get into it, like it's changed your life. It's changed your family's life, and being a part of it, John, that's how fun is that?
Yeah. It's very rewarding.
Yeah.
Very rewarding. Like I can honestly say that, when I embarked on real estate, I didn't expect it to be like this. I didn't expect it to be rewarding in this way. But I also didn't really know what my focus area was going to be. I remember George saying to me, pick what you want to do and like make it yours. And so I went with the buyer boot camp thing because I thought this isn't something that exists, right? And so to look back on that and like to think about the lives I've changed through the boot camps, it's really rewarding.
Yeah. And at the end of boot camp, you're not be like, hey, for $49.99, you can work with, you know what I'm saying? Right. You're just like, hey, give me feedback. I'd love to make this better, not only for you next time, but for maybe your brother, sister, your family member, another person, like they're evolving your company. They're building you,
100%. Yeah, that's right.
That's cool, man. And you left something on your Facebook. I love stalking people before this podcast here. I didn't get much information because you're not on LinkedIn. You're not scared. No, you're good. I love this. And like I said, like Brandon said before this, we've been talking for an hour. It just goes by so fast, right? We could keep going. This podcast could go forever. It's tough. But I love this quote you said. This is one of your favorite quotes. You're always being interviewed.
Always.
And I think that's huge in our industry.
Yeah.
You are.
In life.
Mm-hmm.
Think about, and the context is, it was a broker of mine that said, always remember you're always being interviewed. So think about the way you speak. Think about everything about you, like from the most surfacey, like the way you're dressed, right, and the way you appear, to the way you speak to people, and all that sort of thing, because that could wind up being someone that wants to work with you in a real estate transaction.
Yeah.
So, and then in life in general, like,
or might not, right? Depending on how you carry yourself.
They don't like your chucks, so they're like, no, I work with that.
I'm not a Jordan guy.
What's he wearing?
Yeah, right. But you're right. I mean, we're kind of always on. Your social media now is your business card. Like I said, I looked you up. I got to know you better from your Instagram, your Facebook, and then it's the personal touch here.
Yeah.
Like I've really got to know you today.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, and that's why you can't replace real estate agents, people. You can't just go to social media and be like, yeah, you're the person.
Yeah.
Because the real is face to face, and then you really get to know you. And I'm sure a lot of people love Agent Jon.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
So I have to ask this question. I'm just going to end this right now, but what's next? Agent Jon?
I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, which is helping people, try to realize those goals. Nothing is more rewarding than to just check in with a client, find out where they are, past client, like their kids have grown up, and they call me like it's happening now. Like my clients that I was talking about in Normal Heights, they outgrew their house. They have 2 little ones, and they years ago bought a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and it's just not enough. So they said, hey, we need more space. We want to work with you to find more space, and we did that. And so now they want to sell their 2-bedroom, 1-bath, so I'm working with them on that. So the reward keeps coming back, not related specifically to my commission or anything like that, because that's not my focus. But for me, the reward is they're building wealth. They're in their next house that's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and it's where their life is going to take a new turn and all that stuff. So for me, it's the same. To answer your question, what's next is I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And for my clients, it's building that wealth, building that equity, and my hand in that, and helping them get to where they want to be.
Yeah.
So
That's cool. And I just want to go back real quick. One last thing about your first experience in real estate. You almost like, man, this sucked. But you learn from that, right?
100%.
You became who you are
Yeah.
because of the bad agent you worked with.
Or the bad agent that I was.
Or the bad agent you were.
I wasn't bad. I shouldn't say that's bad, but I'll tell you the story real fast.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Because it's
Take your time.
really funny. It's one of those like I'll never do that again. So there was this woman I was on the board of a nonprofit, and she said she was super awkward. She's like, "I have a proposition for you." And I'm like,
I like the voice, though.
I didn't know. Well, that's how she said it. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
I don't know that I like this proposition. Lady. She's like, I want to sell my place. And I said, oh, I can help you with that.
Yeah.
But what she didn't know is in my very first transaction. So I was working with this mentor and he was kind of, silent partner, kind of helping me through. And she made this big deal about this fridge. She's like, I love my fridge. I love my fridge so much. I'm going to take it with me. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Again, first deal, right? I'm trying to manage everything. And so it comes time for closing. And, what I hadn't realized in the contract was that I hadn't countered out the fridge. So what that means is the fridge is included with the property.
Stays.
Oh my God. It was the end of the world.
Someone really loving a fridge. That's
I mean, 100%.
like, I want a new fridge.
That lady, yeah.
If
yeah.
you knew this lady, like she was.
But
she was fun.
can you tell me what kind of fridge this is, please? Everybody's like on their seats, like, what fridge is this? I want this fridge now.
It's like a stainless steel,
Yeah.
freezer drawer.
Just run of the mill.
Just to run the mill. It's not like a Viking or like a monster.
No way.
Okay.
Not at all. So I wound up having to credit her like $2,500
Yeah,
for a new
you're
fridge.
buying her new fridge.
But as a first-time agent, my first deal, trying to make ends meet,
Yeah.
But the point is that I'll never forget that. And
You'll never.
And so every mistake or misstep or whatever that we do, we learn from it, we grow from it, we don't do it again.
Yeah.
So that's the story of my my goof in my first deal.
I feel like everybody has that. We hired a young agent when we sold our Tucson home, and same thing. They wanted the blinds and everything, all the fixtures and everything. And me, I just wanted to be super nice. I took him down and patched everything, and the agent never said anything. And poor guy, he had to come out of his commission to buy not buy new blinds, but for them to like, If only they knew there was a really cheap curtains and stuff and blinds that he paid a little too much for him out of his commission. Poor guy.
Sears discount appliance store. That's that option too.
Oh.
But like you said, you never forget that. You learn from it. And it makes you the industry professional that you become.
For sure.
We all have those stories. So.
Well, with being in this industry and one of the biggest purchase, I love just full circle about building your dream team. I love that you use that word about your escrow, your title, and everything like that. And going back to you just running to your car because you passed your real estate license, there's nothing after that.
No.
So setting yourself up with the great mentors, the great team, find those people, find Agent Jon. He'll help you out too.
I will.
And with your boot camp, you don't understand. You become a coach without even realizing it. Yeah. So that's amazing. Yeah. You're doing the right thing, Sean. Again, Brandon, thank you so much for bringing on great people.
Yeah. I'll tell you all my secrets. I will. I've got like the whole Thursday afternoon open house thing. It's one of my secrets, special sauce, I'll give it away. The challenge is you have to go and do it.
Right. Yeah, you have to show up. You have to be present.
The term, you got to do the work.
Yeah.
The work's got to be done. So, it's been great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And I didn't know you did the Foodie Friday, so I want to. Right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Well, that's what I call it. But yeah,
I think you should throw in a market update, kind of sneak it in there for everybody.
I do that every now and again.
As you're eating, in the market is
for sure. For sure.
Well, what is he eating?
Yeah, where in town is that?
Yeah. Any secret hidden gems before we go?
No, hidden gems. Like, give me a topic.
Like Foodie Friday.
Yeah, but
your favorite little taco shop?
Favorite little. It's actually where I live. There's a taco truck that's at. Sounds so bad. It's parked. It's parked in the liquor store at the corner of Texas and Meade, and it's seafood, and it's amazing. And it's really hard living down the street from that because I can't have my windows open.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because I'd be there all the time. Mm-hmm. So that's a good gem. I would say follow my my Instagram is Agent Jon SD, AGENTJONSD, and then my Facebook is just Agent Jon. And so I do them on both. The nice thing about social media is you can just kind of scan through and see. But another gem, I'll give away my source. There's a site out there that's called Eater San Diego, EATER. And they've got great writers and they're on top of stuff. So I get a lot of my intel from them. And so it's, you know, I just repurpose and
I love it.
share it out.
You're an open book.
For sure. And I love going out to eat, so we got a lot of places to go. Brandon.
Yes, we
Yeah.
do.
And you too.
Yeah, I'm in.
Let's do it,
Let's
man.
go.
Doesn't
I'm
have to be on a
excited.
Friday.
No, it's going to be right after this. What time is it? 1:26? Taco time.
McGregor's.
McGregor's. No, I love it. Thank you. And again, we've put this podcast off. I know like a lot of just stuff going on in December and into the new year. So I appreciate your patience.
Absolutely.
And thank you for coming out. This was so much fun. Brandon, again, thank you for bringing the
thank
best
you.
guests.
I mean, loved having John in here. That was awesome.
Worth the wait for sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Brandon, tell people where they can find you too, man.
You can find me right here at New Venture Escrow. You could find me on social, Brandon Wood NVE, on Instagram, Facebook, Brandon Wood. That's about it.
Excellent.
Yeah, and the Wood brothers too. You're up north with your brother. You
Wood
work with your brother.
brothers,
I know this is not your brother. This is brother from another mother
be,
because you guys look.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good looking dudes.
Yeah. So the Wood Brothers on Instagram. That's another good place to find us. But yeah, we're always out. We're in the streets.
Yeah. Awesome. Brandon, thanks again. Agent Jon, you're always welcome back.
Thank you. I will be back.
Of course.
You'll regret saying that.
I love it. We'll find this podcast on the What's Next. The full video will be on YouTube, all the streaming platforms for the audio, the What's Next podcast on Instagram. Come find us, and we'll see you next time.
And thank you, Levi. Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Thank you, Levi.